season to get to this point, just what has the last few days been preparing for what's coming tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's kind of we just keep it the same mentality. Don't try to make it any more than what it is. At the end of the day, it's just another game. So I think all the work that we put in throughout this season has just been getting us ready for this moment. So, we're ready for it, and we're just focusing on one game at a time.
Jason, you're one of the only starting pitchers that has been in the spot to start a regional, super, and Omaha. Have you talked to any of the younger pitchers about kind of the mentality and just the environment they're going to be put into?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it last week and the week before. Thought those are great environments. Just kind of telling them, like, this is what it's going to be like. It's good that a lot of guys got into those games and into those situations. So excited to see what everyone does when they get out there.
Jason, should we understand that you are tomorrow's starting pitcher by your presence here?
That's not for me to answer.
You have not been told when you're pitching?
No.
Okay.
Alex, obviously different clubs last year and this year. What's been unique about the identity of this team and finding that out throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, obviously I think last year the long ball was a pretty big identity for that team. I think this year, that's still the case, but, we just find different ways to win, whether it's, playing some small ball, sacrifice bunting, just finding ways to get guys over. But I think the biggest thing with this team is just knowing that we're never out of the fight, just keep working, sticking to the process and just doing what we do best.
How much do you reference last season when looking at that 1-4 game in Long Island, that testy ninth inning? How much do you reference that with the other guys and think about it going into this year?
Yeah, we honestly don't really talk about last year too often. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the year. Obviously Omaha's where you want to get to, and you want to, find a way to host that trophy at the end of the day. But obviously last year that happened early, and we always talk about how if we go down, it is what it is, and you just got to keep fighting and find ways to score.
Alex, having the regionals at home and then having the supers at home last year. I mean, you're set up for sort of the path that you took last year. I guess it's the reward of having the season that you've had. What were the benefits, maybe, that you can look back on of playing all the games here that got you to Omaha last year? Like, what do you remember about, like, being at home for the regionals and the supers?
I think the biggest thing definitely for us is the fans. Obviously, playing in front of them, using the crowd to our advantage. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for us this weekend. And, obviously our home field, we know it best, and, we just love playing here. Bosch Magic.
And it seemed like that Monday night against LSU, too, was maybe one of the biggest examples of, like, the rewards of being at home. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously the fans help the most. I mean, when you have them on your side, it's just so easy to play in front of.
For both of you guys, you took two very different paths to get here. You were in D3 for 4 years, and you skipped a senior year of high school. Can you talk about the journey of getting to this spot now 2 years in a row, and how fortunate you feel for the choices that you've made?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this has been a dream school for me. So coming from a small Division III school, obviously to get to a spot like this, it's nothing short of incredible. I'm always thankful for every opportunity that I've gotten, and just to play, obviously, in front of these fans has been unbelievable. But just to play in spots like a super regional and to go to Omaha and play in regionals, it's everything you dream of as a kid. So at the end of the day, just going back to having fun and playing the game that we know how.
Yeah, I think these last 2 years, it's kind of all we know is to have success and to be in the postseason. And hearing from other guys, it's not like that everywhere. The people don't have the opportunities that we have here, and just trying to be as grateful as you can for that. And like Ahmed said, just enjoy it while you're here.
Jason, you told me that you didn't think you pitched your best in the postseason last year. Are you going to use that experience as some sort of motivation, something to learn from, or do you just kind of start?
Absolutely. It'll be in the back of my mind a little bit. You want to be at your best in the postseason, and I think all of us do, and I think we're in a good spot right now to do that.
With Aiden and Ryan being in spaces where they can flex from the bullpen to starting roles, how does that just help the pitching staff with the idea that you might not just play 3 games, you might have to play a few more?
I think it frees us just from the standpoint of more guys being able to fill in more roles. We don't have to think about saving a guy to start the next day. We can just go and get the game that we're in that day, and know that we have plenty of guys for the next day. And I think that's just a testament to how deep the pitching staff is.
Jason, how have you seen those freshmen, Lynch, McDuffie, Seagrave, sort of grow since day one?
They came in, they were really good, but there definitely has been growth. I think most of it has been mental. I think they're a lot tougher now, and I think that is just from being in tough spots and finding success in those and not having success. I think just that experience is only going to help them moving forward.
Jason, what have you seen from guys like Olin and Folger, who kind of had to watch last year as you guys went through the postseason, but might be huge pieces in the pen this year?
They've been great for us. Every time they're out there, we feel really confident, and just grateful to have more and more guys that can contribute every day.
Alex, along these lines of the pitching, I mean, obviously the depth, top to bottom, has been phenomenal. But the 2 guys at the top with Knapp and Jason, like, where's your confidence level when those dudes are on the mound? Because it seems like, you know, they can match up with anybody that you might face from here on out. Like, where's your confidence with those the top 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, they're unbelievable, and I think everybody in our staff is unbelievable, and I think that, you know, on a defensive aspect, I think that we have the most confidence in them. We know they're going to get a lot of ground balls, so, you know, that's always fun for me. Looking forward to getting those, but yeah, no, they've been incredible this season, and I think that's just a testament to them and all the work that they put in.
The fact that Knapp still has a 0 in the loss column, do y'all talk about that at all? Like, let's try to keep him perfect, you know, like that's kind of a cool thing to be almost in June and the record not have a loss on. Is that a point of discussion at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we'd rather not
Maybe
talk
joke
about
about
that.
it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we just push that aside and, you know, let him go to work.
Gotcha.
After all that you guys did last weekend, enough to earn the top ranking, but you only got a number 5 overall seed. Is that a motivating factor for you guys? Have you guys talked about that?
I mean, we try not to talk about the rankings too much. Obviously, you know, we kind of use it as fuel in a way, but we really don't look at the rankings. We're just gonna, you know, play our brand of baseball and, you know, do what we can to win each and every day.
Alex, the middle infield, you guys have been solid, turning 2 with regularity. What is the shift for you? I know you were shortstop, but you were second base last year. How's that been moving over and then having Jackson there at second?
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, obviously he's a very vocal leader, and he's awesome to play with. Such a great guy. But I think moving over, you know, kind of helped me a little bit become a little bit more of a leader myself. Just being a little bit more vocal and, you know, knowing that we have a lot of young guys, so just stepping up in the leader aspect, I think that's been the biggest thing for me by moving over there this year.
Alex, is there a sense of momentum gained from the way you guys played in the ACC tournament, particularly against FSU and Clemson, 2 teams that are regional hosts? You know, I mean, I know it will have been a week since you played, but like, do you feel like maybe this team is playing about the best it has been this season at this point?
Yeah, definitely. I think ever since, honestly, our Boston College series, we've been playing really good baseball. We had a little team meeting there, and we kind of, you know, had to figure out who we were as a team. And I think ever since then, we kind of just, you know, decided to keep playing the game the way we know how, have fun with it, stick to the process, know that if we're down, you know, we're never out, and, you know, just keep working, keep pushing, moving forward.
In that meeting, was there anybody who was particularly vocal?
Obviously, Jackson and Jake Knapp were the 2, you know, main vocal guys of it. But a lot of the older guys stepped up and talked, and, you know, everybody was able to say whatever they wanted to say. You know, kind of lay everything out on the table and just, you know, go from there.
Alex, we saw how important small ball was in the postseason last season, and it seems like you guys are really executing on all fronts. How have you seen the execution of this team down to the little details?
I think, just going back in the cages and out in the field, we bunt every day and making sure we do all the small things, especially when we practice first and thirds, even on defense, we'll have the outfielders and some of those guys bunt. So I think just really sticking to the little things like you said and just focusing on, those aspects because that's what you got to do to be able to win those close games. So I think every day just focusing on that, it's been very helpful to us.
Carter and Perry both told us that they came in as terrible bunters, and now I would say they're probably two of the best in that lineup. How is their just commitment to getting better at that small aspect of the game indicative of this entire team playing more complete baseball?
Yeah, I think it just goes to show, the type of team we have and, the way that the guys know the type of players that they are. Obviously speaking for myself and probably Perry and Frenchie, we're not the long ball hitters, so we know we got to be able to get a bunt down in a big spot. So, just buying into that and buying into the team and just doing everything we can to help our team win.
Jason, what have you noticed just in your study of Holy Cross? As you've gone through, their lineup and tried to pick out what you want to do against those guys? Like, what stands out about their lineup?
As a team, we really just want to focus on the little things right now. We know that they're a team that, like us, they like to play small ball a little bit. They like to cause a little chaos in the bases, so just trying to stay within ourselves there and slow it down as much as you can.
Jason, for whenever your next outing is, are you going to be watching any film from your previous outings this season to kind of try to replicate some of that magic?
Absolutely. I think every week I go back and look and try and watch as much video as I can on myself. Just try to see what was working, what wasn't working. So I'm definitely going to continue doing that.
Do you always watch the outing from the week before, or does it just depend on what you're watching to prepare for who you're going to play?
I definitely watch the outing from the week before, but if there's something that I'm looking for, then I'll go back and try to find it.
Y'all touched on this a little bit, but obviously there were a lot of guys last season who didn't play in the run to Omaha. Has there been anything that they, any advice or anything that they saw last year from the outside that they've been able to say, hey, this is what we saw that y'all are taking into this postseason?
Talking about like the guys from last year's team.
Yeah. Well, the guys who were still on the team but didn't, like Jake Knapp or Hunter, they watched it, but they didn't play. Was there anything that they're like, okay, this is what we saw from the dugout, and is there anything that y'all have used this season?
I think it's kind of just what we've been speaking about, just keeping everything in control, just playing the game the way that we know how. Obviously, it's what's got us here to this point. So, just focusing on our brand of baseball, and that's going to push us to the next step.
Anything else? All right, thanks, fellas.
Thanks, y'all.
Appreciate it.
What's been unique about the journey of this team, looking back at last year and then a lot of new faces on this year?
Yeah, I would say the word unique, for me, that's what it would be, it's not easy to lose the firepower, I guess is the word that we use as a coaching staff, that we lost last year, and the production, and for these guys to still find a way to, not only have a great season, but be a national seed, put themselves in a great position. And I would also add too, we weren't sure last year that Madera was going to be able to have another season. We weren't sure that Vandenbrake was going to get cleared. So a lot of things had to go in, the dominoes had to fall in the right place for this team to be successful. You had to have a little bit of luck along the way, but the old saying, if you work your tail off, you have way more luck. So that's another thing. It's not unique necessarily, but this team has worked from the first day. No issues as a coach, so not that that's unique, but it's just rare, really difficult to get to that 40 win before the regular season, well, right in the regular season or in the ACC tournament, when you lose that many great players.
Have you ever been part of a group? I mean, players are different and all, but styles of play are so different this year from last year. Have you ever been a part of that kind of drastic turn, I guess?
Probably. I've been coaching long enough now where we've had different teams. But Tommy, I think, I don't think I know my favorite part about being a head coach is understanding that every team is different in some way, shape, or form. But they are drastically different from the standpoint of just a lot of different style of how we have to get things done. You go from having a left-handed closure to 3 freshmen or 2 freshmen that are doing the bulk of the relieving. You go from hitting 100 and whatever home runs we hit to how many do we have now? I don't even know.
73.
I mean, that's not terrible, but it's also, we're not 20, 18, 15, 18. But that's a credit to our coaching staff, not me, but these guys that I see that put in the true work. Coach Jackson, Coach Wierzbicki, Coach Gaines, and Coach Howell. Us working together to figure out, okay, how can we take this team and help them maximize their potential, and then the players buying into it and understanding, hey, we have to do this well, we have to do that well, and landing some key parts to allow us to do that in the Kane Kepleys and the Tyson Bass and those type of guys.
Alex and Jackson have both talked about the meeting that was had during the Boston College series, where the team really came together, tried to find their identity, say what they needed to do to get to the point they are now. How have you seen that kind of discussion between these leaders and this entire team just take effect, getting them to where they are now?
I'm not in those discussions when they have a player-only meeting, so I trust the team. When I meet with players early on, if we do designate captains, I just let them know, like, hey, if it gets up to my office, usually that's not too good. Usually that's the end of the road. And I've been in the locker room. I played. I was fortunate, at least I thought I was. You'd have to ask Coach Fox, but I felt like I was one of our leaders in 1997. Man, that sounds like a long time ago, doesn't it? But that was my last year playing for Coach. I really wanted to get North Carolina Wesleyan back to the Division III World Series, or help us get back. I don't think we have been since '94. And I understood then at a young age what Coach meant by, like, this is your locker room, and the older players need to control that locker room and make the younger players and the new players understand how we do things here. And that's what they've done. They decided to have that meeting, and they know more about what was said in there than I do, but whatever was said in there, it definitely worked.
Scott, as you've had a couple days now to dig into Holy Cross, what are the things that stand out to you? What would you say if you're preparing your scouting report or whatever it is you prepare? What are the top line items that you've noticed about Holy Cross?
I think they have a really good starter that we're going to have to try to beat. He's competitive. He doesn't walk you. He's got good stuff. He's got a chance to be a draft pick. So that stands out number one. I'm going to look at who we're going to face on the mound, because that guy dictates everything. They're extremely aggressive on the bases. They got a ton of stolen bases. They bunt a lot. So really very similar. They're going to play a style that Louisville and Boston College play. So we practiced really hard this week on being ready for that part of the game. Obviously, you don't have to be as ready if you don't let as many people on base. But they're a really good club. They've had a great year. We'll have our work cut out for us. I think they have a really good team, and he's not the only good pitcher they have.
Right.
So we're just going to have to play well.
Which one of those guys do you mean? The guy with, I think there's a last name M and a last name W. Yeah.
Yeah, both
W
of
is
those guys are really good.
Right. The one was the Patriot League Pitcher of the Year.
Yeah.
I think. Is that the one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever they announced they've started is good. That's all I know. And I lay my eyes on them. I let the coaches do the reports, but I do like to watch a game or two just to see what their style of play is. They're older too. They've played a lot of baseball. They're not going to back down. They're going to be excited. I think they're going to play well, and we'll have to match it for sure.
Have you gone back and looked at any of the film or your critiques, your grades of the BC and the Louisville games to make sure whatever kind of pitfalls the team went into in those, they won't recreate against Holy Cross?
We just practice it daily. It's our fault as coaches if our pitchers can't control the running game, if our middle guys don't control the running game. If we're not prepared for it, it's because we don't practice it every day, and we practice it every day even if we're not going to face it, because usually every team's going to have one or two guys that run. And I explain to our players all the time, you don't want a weakness, because if we find a weakness on another team, we are going to pick on that weakness all game. If it's slow to plate, if the catcher has a slow exchange, if he's lazy, if the outfielders are lazy, we advanced on the ball in the AC tournament based on what we saw on video. So it's not pulling up the opponent for me, Grace. It's us knowing, like, here are things that we need to be able to do no matter what. And even if a team doesn't run, we practice not being, I was a pitching coach. I mean, our pitchers aren't going to be 1-6 to the plate. They're not going to be human rain delays. It's just not the way it's going to work here.
What's your pitching plan?
Nap and Holy Cross. The guys asked me if I was going to go in and pull the old every answer Holy Cross, because that's all we're focused on. But Nap is going to start, and right now DeCaro will start game 2.
And if you noticed, Oklahoma is apparently saving its ace for Saturday.
Yeah, I talked to our team about that too. I just addressed that quickly. Like, listen, at the end of the day, we might not play Oklahoma. We might. But if we're focusing on Oklahoma or who they're going to throw or who they're saving, Holy Cross can come in here and whip our tail. So we have to focus on Holy Cross. So that's all we've talked about. If we take care of business, we'll figure out who we're playing after we watch Nebraska and Oklahoma. And I also told them, I said, it doesn't matter who saves who, doesn't matter who's pitching. If you want to win a national championship, you have to beat really great teams and great individual players. West Virginia had a first-round shortstop. They had a pitcher that threw a complete game every time he went out there. Jamie Arnold, we had to find a way to beat him. That's just the way it goes this time of year. And I just said, hey, we don't need to talk about it. And if we face them, we face them.
How have you seen the ability of this team find a way to get it done, even in those Jamie Arnold situations, that they have maybe a few more obstacles where the other player that they're playing has a lot of the draft chatter? How do you find this team particularly gets it done?
They've completely bought into not looking at the scoreboard, not counting outs, no more, one more. I talked to them about that from my experience of being in Omaha, being in 2 national championships, just playing, playing free and easy, being aggressive. We use the 2 words default, aggressive all the time. If you have a default, be aggressive, go get it, don't back down. And they do play with an edge. I mean, this team, I think a lot of those guys feel like our program's a really good baseball program, and they want to make sure that everybody else feels like that as well, and they carry that chip a little bit. But they're going to, this team's going to play. We may get behind, we may not get behind, but they're going to play until that last out is made.
Scott, you've talked about it, throughout the season, but what sort of luxury is it for you as a coach, just like with Knapp and Caro at the top of the lineup in terms of like the starting pitching? Whether somebody's saving an ace or whatever, there seems like there's a confidence there because, both those guys are big game pitchers and capable of being in huge moments.
Yeah, and you can add Aiden Houck to that. If you look what he's done this season, his numbers are, everybody has 1 or 2 outings that just aren't fabulous sometimes. And some guys have a little more luck here, a little more luck there, get more double plays, things like that. But I think we have 3 Friday night starters, and they're all going to pressure you. Houck in a huge game for us. Where was it? At BC. That was a huge game. We weren't playing that well. Tough conditions. He throws a complete game, 7-inning, no hitter, 1-hitter, whatever they call it, a 1-hitter. But it's a huge luxury, and we talked about that. Like, Jason DeCaro pitched game 1 in the regional. He pitched another game in the regional, elimination game against LSU, and then he goes out there against West Virginia in game 2, and I think he went 6 or 7, and then he's got the bases loaded against Virginia with Didewick up. He's got 20-some home runs, and he strikes them out. So you could also argue that Jason has the most big game experience of anybody, besides Matty Mathias, but he's not here. So it is a luxury. It definitely helps you sleep good at night, because the better pitching you have, the better your team's going to be. That's just the bottom line.
With all the experience that Jason has in those big game situations, have you seen him kind of grow and help some of these younger players, or even the players that are older than him, that he has more of that big game experience this season?
Well, there are no younger players than him. right now. He's the youngest player still on our team, which blows my mind. But yes, I mean, he's a leader by example. He won one of our awards that Coach Gatz, our strength coach, gives out. You know, and Coach Gatz is really good at that. He's one of my go-tos when guys get here in summer school. He has a good idea of what kids are doing, how hard they're working, are they maturing, and you see that first and foremost. And then the thing about Jason is when he goes out there, he likes the bigger moments. That's just how he's wired. You know, I could see it in him in the ACC tournament, you know, against Florida State, packed house. Like he likes that. So he just got that, and then you add in the work ethic. His best baseball still is down the road. You know, I'm hoping he'll have another velocity jump when he's here, but again, he is really young.
Everybody talks about the BC meeting. I remember after UConn, you were not pleased talking to us, but it seems like when Carter French solidified left field, it really settled your defense down on the whole. Is that a thing with Carter being able to do that, or is that just a coincidence there?
I don't think so. Another credit, you know, to my staff. You know, we meet all the time, and we were just discussing, okay, you know, how do we make our defense the best we can make it? In 2022, we made the change and put Colby Wilkerson at second base. And as soon as we put Colby Wilkerson at second base, we didn't have this pitching staff where you're going to strike all these guys out, but this pitching staff, because of their velocity, gives up a ton of fly balls and a ton of ground balls to the opposite side of whatever the hitter is. And we just made a collective decision, like Carter French is one of our best outfield defenders. Definitely top 3. You could argue top 2. Gets good reads, athletic. We weren't getting a ton of production. And it really reminded me too when we plugged in Mikey Madera. I don't know y'all remember Mikey. Switch hitter, could run. And, you know, the next thing you know, he's locking down left field. He's making every play. And then he's having good at-bats. I mean, that's the thing that Carter's average is a little misleading because he knows the strike zone. He's not an automatic 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. He's gotten better and better and better. He's getting bunts down, and he can pressure the defense with his speed. When he gets on the bases, he's an advanced base runner. So 100%, you know, he's really solidified our defense and our lineup, in my opinion.
Anything else? Thanks, Coach.
Lunchtime.